Hi, Kat.
Hi, Sam.
I haven't frozen this time, have I?
No, you have not.
No,
I can.
good. Anyway, as I was saying when we first started recording, it's taken me like a whole of one episode to stop making an effort. Like, I've got no makeup on. Nothing.
Well, I've gone the total opposite way just because I feel so poorly. So I've
Yeah.
like
Oh,
not
yeah. I
makeup.
get like that. But no, I wore makeup yesterday, and then I was like, oh, the thought of putting makeup on again today.
Oh, it's one day a week. One day a
Yeah.
week, mate. You feel the quota.
I've got my glasses on, but I keep like tilting it so I don't get like a, reflection for
Yeah.
everyone. But I might take them off. But anyway, episode 2. Let's go.
Yep. So welcome to WhatMS episode 2. And today we are talking about DMDs and why they are important in relapsing remitting MS. Obviously, that's the MS that we have, and we don't have much knowledge on treatment for sort of other MS.
No, like secondary progressive. I know a bit about them, but I wouldn't know any of the treatments that are available for them.
Yeah. So just for context, that's what we're kind of talking about
So
today.
DMDs is because it's disease modifying drug.
Yeah. Some people do call them DMTs as well.
Yeah.
Which I'm pretty sure is a drug itself. But
oh, is it? What is a T? Is a T treatment?
Yeah, disease modifying treatment. So either or. Either or.
Cool.
I'm nervous because I'm supposed to be taking the lead on this episode, and I'm really not used to it at all.
Everyone pump her up.
Yeah.
I should have made like a sign for you. Go Cat.
I feel like that's what I need. But the door's slammed shut already. Okay, so basically we're going to talk about why we feel like they are important. Obviously people I kind of feel like it's kind of split actually, the community. Like a lot of people decide not to take disease modifying drugs. And then also some people are all for them. And I think we both sit in the camp of please take a DMD. Because at the end of the day, multiple sclerosis is a progressive illness. Again, I feel like that's something that is almost like taboo to say, or people kind of take it as like you being negative almost by saying that, because everyone's like, oh, it might not, it might not get and it's like, I'm not saying, we're all gonna, I don't know, our MS is going to get really bad and we're all going to end up in wheelchairs and not be able to, like, do you know what I mean? Like, at the end of the day, we don't know. Our MS is our individual MS. But the reality is, even if it progresses, like, obviously to anyone listening, you can't see, but this amount, it can also progress to this amount. So it's just kind of like, it is progressive, and that is, well, that's the whole thing about the illness.
A lot of people would think like, oh, I don't want to think of it like that because it might not progress. And they're right in the extent that, like you said, it might not progress in their eyes, that it shows a visible symptom as such, but it is factually, like I said, a progressive disease. So it doesn't mean, by saying that, it doesn't mean that you'll get like almost giving in to the fact that it's going to progress so bad and you're going to be, like you said, a wheelchair user, or lose your eyesight, or whatever it is, but it still is progressive.
And that is, that's not our opinion, that is scientific fact. And I think doctors, again, like when I was diagnosed, they weren't really honest with me about it. They told me not to Google it and research it, which, side note, I think is absolutely terrible advice. I
was told to Google it as well.
I mean, we were talking about this the other day, weren't we? Like, why on earth, when you've been diagnosed with a lifelong chronic illness that is going to affect your life considerably, why on earth would you not want to find out as much information as possible about it? Like,
to be fair, I was told not to Google it by like a non-specialist, like just the on-call doctor in the hospital.
Oh, really? I mean, I can understand that, but I also find it very patronising, because I think, we're not stupid, we're relatively intelligent, and I think, it's almost like wrapping us up in cotton wool and sort of babying us, and it's like, no, we're grown-ups, like, and actually we should be told, the severity of the illness that we've just been diagnosed with and what it could possibly entail for us in the future.
Because surely not learning about it could have, like, I guess part of me thinks, do they say that because they don't want you to like get scared and overthink things and like go into panic mode? But kind of by not learning about it and not like googling it does, I think that's the thing, isn't it? Like googling it makes it sound like you're going to start like googling every single symptom and convince yourself you're going to die, but it's more about like you said, learning about it. Because if not, anytime that something happens that you're not sure of, you could be like panicking and ringing them and being like, well, this has happened, is it that? At least if you educate yourself, you're not going to know everything, but I feel like you could kind of at least weigh up like, oh, okay, like this is happening and that is normal. It's nothing to be too scared about.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think, what is it? I don't know, knowledge is power and all that. Like, it's actually helped me, like you just said, like it helps me kind of keep calm knowing that, you know, how it works basically. And when horrible, scary things are happening to my body, I can almost sort of like, not take myself to A&E because I know that I don't necessarily need to do that because I've read about this possibly happening, if that makes sense.
Yeah, because before I was diagnosed, what did I do? Took myself to A&E. So that's a very real thing that you could end up doing.
I went twice, and again, I think this is for another episode. Sort of diagnosis processes. I've been doing a lot of research into it recently, but I'm pretty sure we've all ended up in A&E at some point with it. I think, I don't know, a lot of the people I know anyway. But yeah, basically, we have overactive immune systems, which is why we have MS. Do you want to explain a little bit about that, Sam?
Well, I don't know. I feel like probably you'd be better to explain it because I'll kind of give my understanding, because mine, like I have looked into it and researched it to an extent where I feel like perhaps I represent the average person like with MS, if you're not, I'm like trying to air quote there if you're not watching us on YouTube. But what I mean by that is like I don't have a background in, like I'm not that knowledgeable in that stuff anyway, whereas I feel like it probably makes a bit more sense to you. But like, so my understanding would be that the immune system, like if I'm trying to explain it to somebody and I'm trying to just be a bit like, you know, not too serious about it, I always say, oh, my immune system's just really stupid and it just doesn't know what it's attacking and it ends up attacking itself, or like the myelin, which is like the coating of the nerves. And that's kind of probably the extent as what I'd go to, that my immune system attacks itself. And I know like there's like the T cells and the B cells and stuff like that, but without probably reading it as a reminder and having it in front of me, I don't think I could like reel it off, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it. I mean, I'm not an expert on it. I do understand certain bodily functions just due to what
that's what I mean. Like I could read about the T cells and B cells and I'd be like, oh, okay, that's what it does. But it's not like I'm like, you know, I don't know. I don't really know what I'm talking about that. But I just feel like probably you have more of an explanation around like the more sciencey side of it.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's basically what it is that our immune systems are overactive. And I don't know about you, but this is just some anecdotal like experience that I used to always brag about never getting ill. Like that was one of the things I used to say, like I never get sick, I never catch this obviously before I was diagnosed. You know, everyone would have colds and coughs and I just never got anything, and I used to think I was like invincible or something. And yeah, it turned out that my immune system was that great, it was eating my own brain and spine. Like, so
I just say that's so interesting that you said that, because I was the opposite. So now, because of treatments like which we'll go into, I do pick up like coughs, colds, like I do pick up things frequently. But prior to my MS diagnosis and prior to those like relapses that really led to like a bit more damage, I got sick a lot. Like I would say that I was more sick before than now, if that makes sense. So like, yeah, I do pick up colds easier and they are worse and they cause flare-ups. But before, I would pick up like every sickness bug going. you know. I like not so much colds is probably average, but I would always get like a sickness bug or an upset stomach, or like, yeah, I felt like I would get poorly quite a lot. Whereas now it's very rare for me to catch like a sickness bug. Does that make sense? And not like a cold or the flu or anything like that, because I do get those. But like, I can't really remember the last time that I had those sort of like 24, 48 hours like sickness.
That's mad. See, I
Yeah.
mean, I've never had that. And
Yeah.
like, I remember the first time I got a cold after I had Ocrevus, and I was like, "What the actual
What is
is
this?
this?" Like, this is what people talk about all the time. But of course, it set off all my symptoms.
Mm.
So obviously now, even, and I don't know if that was why I never really obviously noticed I had MS, was because I never got ill. Because you know, obviously, when you get poorly, then your symptoms flare up. But
Yeah.
that wasn't happening for me, so my symptoms weren't
It was
like
like all going
ramping.
around in the background kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that is really interesting that
Yeah.
you were the opposite.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Okay.
sorry, as you were saying.
What was I saying? Yeah, so we have obviously overactive immune systems, and the DMDs basically work on our. So there's T and B cells which are part of our immune system, and the DMDs work on either the T cells or the B cells, or I think some of the drugs work on both of them. There's
Mm.
different mechanisms. We'd be here literally all day if I was to talk through that. But basically, it sort of lowers them, I think, and removes them, which then results in us being immunosuppressed, which is why we catch everything under the sun. Like I just said about Ocrevus. After my first Ocrevus treatment, about 2 weeks after that, I think I caught a little cold for the first time in my life, and I genuinely felt like I was dying, and I was just like, this is insane. But obviously, being immunosuppressed and our immune system sort of being brought down, that should result in fewer relapses for us, and also less severe relapses, which is the kind of idea behind a DMD, basically.
I have a science question. I don't you that you might know the answer to.
Pressure.
I feel like I probably should know the answer, and I probably did at some point, but I've forgotten. But a lot of like what gets said to me is around the lymphocytes. So like I'll go into it later when I explain the different ones I've been on. But like when I was taking one tablet, it didn't eradicate the lymphocytes, but it made them like retreat, or like they were stored in my lymph nodes. And then if I did get an infection, my body would like release them to go to it. And then obviously then with the last one that I'm on, it kills off the lymphocytes. But that's something to do with, isn't it, like the white blood cell count?
Mm-hmm.
Is that anything to do with the T and B cells, or is that just something, is that just more like from a infection side of
So,
things?
as far as I'm aware, they are white blood cells or
Yeah, or like they're
within
part
white
of it,
blood
aren't they?
cells. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I mean, like Ocrevus works on it. The mechanism I know the mechanism with Ocrevus because I'm on it,
Yeah.
is that it targets a certain protein marker
Right.
on your B cells, which are obviously in white blood cells, I think. But please, anyone tell me if I'm wrong on that.
Yeah, I think they must be part of it, because when I get my blood tests on like the app where it lists it all, my white blood cell count is always different to my lymphocyte count. But I think it's like the part of the white blood cell that fights infection. Again,
Yeah,
correct me, like people let us know if we're.
I feel like I need to look into this now.
But yeah, but that's,
Yeah.
to me, like that's more what gets said from, like, that's more what I hear from doctors. They're like, your lymphocyte count, lymphocytes, like.
Yeah, I've heard that a lot with I know it's obviously Lemtrada because you've
Yeah.
Lemtrada, and I know also when you have stem cells, so HSC,
Yeah.
that's involved that. But yeah, again, I would probably have to look into it
Yeah.
before I talked about it. Don't want to make myself look too stupid. What have I got here? So yeah, basically with each relapse we have, that results in more permanent damage, either on our brain or our spinal cord. Obviously, the recovery can vary. When you have a relapse, you can get pretty much all function back, or there will be, well, the majority of the time, I don't know about you, Sam, but I've found that with every relapse I have, there is some residual damage. Like, it's like yeah, I mean, to someone looking at me, I'm exactly the same as I was 3 years ago. But I'm not.
Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
same here. Like, not to be, I don't want to be like scaring anyone and like negative or anything, but yeah, I haven't since that. I call it my first relapse, even though it wasn't. But it's like the first relapse that sort of then led to the diagnosis, that was so clearly
yeah.
confirmed. But like, I haven't been the same since then. And it's not that I've, things have like really, really bad, like it's stuck, but yeah, I haven't ever bounced back completely from the relapses.
Yeah. I mean, I'm the same in that I feel like I obviously was having like a lot of little relapses throughout my whole life. And I think I did pretty much bounce back from all of them. Like I wasn't left with any, even the relapse I had in Australia, the only sort of things left over were anxiety leg and the shout out to anxiety leg. Obviously was my vision, but then again they did all clear up as well. I don't know, but then actually when the sort of more recent relapses I have that have been a lot nastier, they have left me with things, and it's workable, but it's my legs and my grip and my speech. But like it's so difficult to explain to people. Like I don't know if you find this as well, Sam, but like people will say to me, oh, you've had MS your whole life. And it's like, well, yeah, I have. But I also have like a whole new pile of brain damage that affects me in different ways every day that didn't affect me in those ways even 12 months ago. But we still look exactly the same. So people don't really seem to grasp that, I don't think.
No, they don't. I've spoke about this loads on like other channels and stuff, and even like some of my best friends closest to me, they like, I've had them say, oh, that was really interesting because I did know that, but do you know what, I completely forgot because you always do look better. And where I've kind of explained that, so mainly like the last few relapses I've had have like affected my walking, and I haven't been able to walk. And so it's easy to be like, right, she's sick at the moment, she's unwell, like, because she can't walk. And then I get better and I can walk again. But like you said, it doesn't mean that it's not difficult or there's different sensations or whatever. But to the eye, people will be like, oh, she's better now. And I've kind of explained that it's not like I'm poorly for that brief period of time and then everything's fine. Like, that damage done from that period of time is irreversible.
Yeah.
And that's what I've had quite a few people sort of say to me, like, oh, I did not realize that. I thought you were just unwell when you were in a relapse, and then you were better, like, not better, like they know I have symptoms, but they don't realize that relapse doesn't heal, if that makes sense, completely.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say that as well. Like, someone said to me, I remember after sort of like my initial diagnosis, like, I said to me and they were like, oh, what, it's going to happen again? And I was like, probably. I mean, but also that's another thing, I get shouted down for saying that because apparently that's negative. But it's like, I don't think it is. I think it's just realistic based on past history. But yeah, I mean, like, and that's another thing, like you've just said, in that we're ill all the time. Like, me and you are both ill right now. Like, I've got symptoms right now. I don't know about you, but anyone to meet me wouldn't know it, but I can feel it.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's a very complicated illness. When I start actually talking to people that do genuinely take an interest and don't just brush it off, they're literally like, oh my god, this is mad. And I'm like, I know, it's crazy.
I cannot stand people that don't have MS that will be like, no, don't think like that, you'll be fine. Because like, it depends, like, obviously you can gauge like where that's coming from, if it's just a case of like themselves are trying to be so positive about it. But I hate being told how to feel. Like, you'll be fine, don't worry about it. Oh, I'm sure that won't happen. I'm like, you're you're not even coming from an educated point of view here. You're just saying that as like words. But
yeah, my favorite is don't cry.
Don't cry.
Yeah, people are like, don't cry, like, because I you know, I write a post and say that I've been crying, and everyone's like, oh my god, don't cry, and I'm like, no, that's actually probably the healthiest thing you can do is cry.
Yeah, I don't want to go off on too much of a tangent. I really just want to say, like, from what you just said there, that when I right, to keep this really brief, basically I had an Instagram page that was just called I Don't Look Sick, and it was private, and Kat, that's where we first started talking on, wasn't it? And I kept it as private because I wanted to be able to write whatever I was feeling, like you just said. Like if I was crying, I wanted to write about crying, like whatever. And I didn't want anyone that I knew around me trying to fix it. You know, like they say, don't cry, or like offer up pity, because that was not the reason why I wanted to talk about something. It wasn't to get pity or attention or whatever like people might have thought it was. I just wanted to talk about it. So I kept that Instagram completely private, because I was like you just said, if I want to say something, if I want to cry, I want to cry, and I don't want to be told, oh, like, that's okay, stop crying. It's just not what you do it for.
Yeah, and I think it's good to like, you know, it's, I feel like in society and in our culture, it's, you know, showing emotion is like this weakness. And it's like, actually, it's really healthy to express emotion. And if you're able to express emotion in a healthy way, you know, I'm not saying, you know, go and lie in bed for 5 days straight and just cry your eyes out. But I think a healthy little cry every now and again is very healthy, and I would encourage other people to do the same, which is why, you know, I don't, yeah, like you said, I don't write to, so people are like, oh, it's going to be okay, like, oh, Kat, oh, don't worry. It's to show other people that they will be okay if they're going through it, and if they're sad, they're allowed to be sad, and it's completely valid to
feel whatever you want to feel.
and not be told how to feel, because like you say, it's I'm not a fan of that at all. Not a fan of that at all.
No.
But yeah, we could go off on tangents.
It's so easy to just be like,
yeah, I know. We've got so
right. Damn, yes.
We've had so many phone calls this week, haven't we? And literally, we've just said like, these phone calls could actually just be podcasts, because they're just so interesting.
And especially, but that's the thing though, like we'll be like, oh, are you free? Like, I just wanted to run this like podcast idea by you. I just want to talk about this. And then we don't even talk about that. We just literally are like, conspiracy theories, MLMs. Like, it just goes off on such a tangent, and like an hour later, and I'm like, oh God, I better go. Like, we'll have to talk again.
Oh mate, I wouldn't have it any other way, to be perfectly honest with you.
The secret life of Sam and Kat.
I love it. But anyway,
made an appearance.
I know he loves it. He's he's in a little attention seeker.
I love it. Anyway, sorry. Right, back on track.
Right, back to DMD. So basically, we were saying, you know, each relapse we have comes with permanent damage, which obviously shows up as nice big splodges all over our brain and spine on MRIs. And once they're there, they're not really going anywhere. They can shrink and they can get older and less active, but they're there. So I've been looking a lot into early intervention in multiple sclerosis. And again, this is something I feel really strongly about, and it's been something bothering me a lot, based off the back of a conversation I had with a nurse in the hospital the other day. And I was talking about my diagnosis to another patient. And I was talking about how I'd been undiagnosed for 10 years and told that I was mental the whole time. And she literally just went, yeah, well, that's really common. And I thought, no, like, just because it's common doesn't make it acceptable. So I've been looking a lot into the diagnosis process with MS and things like that. And I mean, I was, from the start, from diagnosis, I was made aware that early intervention had better outcomes. But I sort of, off the back of that conversation with the nurse that sort of riled me ever so slightly, I was looking a lot more into it. And it is, you know, that's it. That's what they say. You know, the earliest you can get on any kind of treatment, you know, you're going to be reducing the number of relapses you're having, which is the amount of brain damage or, you know, central nervous system damage that you're having. So like, to me, it's a no-brainer. It's like, why on earth would you, you know, the first like instance of diagnosis with MS not be put straight on a treatment?
Yeah.
um
And the
and I
frustrating thing about that is though that like not all neurologists will advise that. Like that article that, so Kat sent me an article on the MS Trust, and it was from 2018, and it was around, wasn't it, like early intervention, like what the acronym was, like NEDA or something, wasn't it? I can't remember
yeah,
what that stood for.
I hadn't heard of that.
No, I haven't.
But that is, again, that's interesting. And I've got some other stuff that I'm going to send you. Actually, I meant to send you,
Hmm.
but it was like someone had put, it was like some, I don't even know what organization it was, but it was some MS organization had put together like sort of like a booklet, well, PDF, that was sort of information on early intervention. And it was kind of, it was advice for doctors and like GPs and stuff, and really urging them to take notice of and recognize the signs, because MS is so hard to diagnose,
Hmm.
because the symptoms are so varied. You know, they often get sort of treated as the individual symptom, but the thing was basically saying, you know, when you've got a cluster of quite obviously neurological symptoms, that should be a red flag, and that should be like, okay, this healthy, you know, 30-year-old, you know, shouldn't be weighing themselves and shouldn't like not be able to see properly,
Yeah, yeah.
shouldn't be getting all these and, you know, collapsing or whatever. And for some reason that's not a thing. Like, that's kind, so for that woman, to that nurse to say to me, oh, it's really common, and if it's like a, you know, that's acceptable and that's okay, for me, I'm just not okay with that. And all of the data says early intervention is always going to have the better outcome.
Even on that article, it said at the bottom, didn't it? Like it said, whilst a lot of neurologists will agree and they will put forward that early intervention is the best, some neurologists still won't. And so the article from the MS Trust was sort of saying like, so we do strongly, you know, it was sort of saying, wasn't it, like, so you bring it up, you know, like if it's not brought up to you, you were within every bit of your right to bring it up and say, I would like early intervention, because it just seems that not everyone is on the same page there.
Well, I mean, I agree. I was never really, obviously this was my own research, and again, which I find awful that they tell you not to do your own research, but there's all these people that are just going away and being sent away. My thing that gets me up the most is when they say, go away, go home and wait and see. Like, to me, that's completely unacceptable. Like, wait, so it's all, so basically the system as it stands at the moment is that to qualify for a drug that slows down the progression of your brain damage, you have to get more brain damaged, which makes absolutely no sense to me at all. You know, if anyone can
It's
explain this
like
to me.
you were, if you like banged your head really bad and it was bleeding, and you went to A&E and you were like, my head is bleeding, and they were like, well, go home and see if it stops bleeding.
Yeah, that is pretty much what it's like. It's like, oh, I've just had a really serious relapse, but oh, maybe it won't happen again. Maybe we'll just send you home and just wait and see, and it might. And you know, with that relapse, your legs might be taken off, like out, and that, like, do you see? That's what I
Yeah.
mean. I just think
Yeah.
that is not acceptable. But I mean, again, this is a topic for another podcast, which I would like to talk about more in depth. But
Yeah,
um,
definitely.
yeah, I mean, if you are a newly diagnosed patient with MS, or even if you're not newly diagnosed, I would urge you to speak to your neurologist about treatment,
Mm.
um, and see what your options are, and push for the highest efficacy drug that they will give you. And again, that I find that absolutely bizarre as well. Like, that you can only qualify for certain drugs if you've only had X amount of
Yeah.
relapses or whatever.
Yeah.
It's like, and again, the data shows that it should be the highest efficacy drug as soon as possible. Like, that's it, bottom line. And I just don't understand why it's,
I feel like I'm quite aware that like you said, there's quite a split, isn't there, in the community of people that will be like pro, uh, not anti it, but just being like, well, they were probably told that, like, wait and see,
Mm-hmm.
if like another relapse happens, and if they are doing well at the moment, they're like, well, I don't want to take a drug because like I feel okay. And at the end of the day, like, we can say all we want, like it's everyone's individual decision, but I just hope and wish that people would make that decision from, like you said, a more educated place around early intervention. Because yes, you might be doing well now, and I'm not saying that then that you're not going to be, like, I'm not being negative or horrible, but like it's weighing up that option of like, but you could have a relapse that, like you said, is a really severe one that does like wipe you out. And so if you choose not to, okay, like that's your decision, but it's not that educated, like you says, is it? Like people aren't made aware of the importance and the benefits of early intervention.
Yeah,
It's
completely.
almost like they, if they probably go there and they say, oh, I don't really want to take any medication, and the neurologist just goes, okay.
Yeah, literally. Like, yeah.
Because a load of people will do that, like, you know, like, because they'll be like, well, the doctor said okay, so I'm sure that's fine. You know, they need to educate them more. And then really, like, you know, you're always going to get people that really feel strongly about not taking it, fine. But I just feel like people aren't, it's not really explained to them well enough in the first place.
Yeah, I completely agree. And that was something I definitely found with when I was first diagnosed. I mean, all of my information came from Google. I did air quotes there for anyone listening. And also speaking to people like Sam and people within the community. They were the people that told me really how it was, sort of straight up. And I feel like neurologists and even some MS nurses as well will just sort of dance around it and sort of be like, oh, you'll be fine. And, you know, I remember being told that I'll be able to get married and have a job and have children and work full time. And I'm sitting there thinking,
Mm.
but
Yeah, and
yeah,
you're like, that's great, but
I don't think they're
makes you
honest.
feel like shit if that doesn't happen.
Well, yeah, that's what I mean. I was just kind of a bit like, well, this isn't fitting with my lived reality, but okay, you're just making me feel really bad. And I mean, of course, that is the case for some people, and that is amazing.
But that's
But
what it should be. It should be more a spectrum of what can happen. But I
yeah,
feel like they solely focus on the positives.
yeah,
And yes, like you said, they can happen, but they can also not happen. So like you're kind of set up for a bit of a fall, really. Like you should be kind of given not just a piece of the picture, like the whole picture.
but yeah, it's almost it's invalidating because it's like you've been through all this horrendous stuff and you're really feeling really sick. You finally get your diagnosis. It's like this for me. It was like finally after 10 years, I know all, you know, why my life's been a roller coaster. And then it's almost still, even then, she was like, yeah, I know, but you'll be fine though. Just get on with it. And I was like, that makes no, like, what? Like, absolutely no sense. But yeah, we're going off the topic of DMDs again, which is my fault. But yeah, I mean, what were we just saying? Yeah, like you said, obviously there is you know, people do choose not to take them. And I respect, you know, at the end of the day, you do what you want to do with your own body, but also I would say please take a drug, because
So would I.
it, like we've said, yeah, at the start, like it's denying the reality of multiple sclerosis is not going to make it go away. So I feel like by accepting that and choosing to take a drug and choosing to treat it is sort of a way for me to take control. And also, I you know, I want to be able to walk. I don't want to have loads of relapses. Like I mean, I relapsed on Ocrevus, but you know, I might have had 2 relapses. So it's like, it's not only is it preventing it, it's just reducing the amount that you may have inevitably have.
Oh yeah, I feel like that's a really big point, isn't it? Because like some people, like, they don't have MS will be like, oh, but if you have it, you know, like none of the DMDs, as far as no, I was gonna say as far as I'm aware, I feel like factually none of the DMDs are 100%. Are they? Like none of them are set to be like 100% you will not have a relapse again, because I know it's not quite a cure because you could still have like activity, but it's still closer to a cure if you had a medication. But all of them are like a percentage of like reduction in relapses. So like you were saying, like the more effective drugs will have a higher percentage and the less effective ones will be like, I think, is it Capaxone, the injection? That's very as I say, very uninvasive, but I know it is an injection. But I think that from what I was originally told, is only something like a 30% reduction. So that's
Yeah.
probably why it is like a less, you know, like if you are having a relapse like once every 10 years, maybe that might be the drug for you, because that reduction could mean that. But yeah, none of them are like 100%. If you take this, you will not have another relapse again.
Yeah. No. Yeah, because it is incurable, and I do think sometimes people do forget that. I would also like to say, sort of, for me, like anecdotally, obviously I've had MS since I was in my early teens, and I'm now 31, and obviously I was only diagnosed, just a year and a half ago. But I mean, my MS since I was a teenager was relatively, I say this is me playing down things in my life again, but relatively quiet, in that I was having relapses and I was getting poorly, and obviously I didn't know, but all my body parts were still working. I could still see. My vision wasn't bad. I wasn't having any problems with my bladder. And this was 10 years.
Yeah.
And
Because
I
you
obviously,
it though, isn't it?
yeah,
It's like the norm for you, so you don't see it as like, because
yeah.
that was your norm.
But obviously I wasn't on treatment because obviously I wasn't diagnosed. So I mean, I know there's a lot about treating multiple sclerosis with nutrition. But I mean, my argument for that is, I mean, I'm studying to be a nutritionist at the moment. I really do rate food, and I know that food can have a lot of benefits in regards to our health. But it also will not really, it will do nothing in regards to the progression of our illness. Yeah, it might help symptoms. Yeah, it might make us feel better. And, when you're generally healthier, you feel better.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Like, I look at it from like a not so educated point of view, that so remove MS from the situation, the healthier you can be, the healthier you are. And I feel like, so like nutrition and stuff like that is important, because that's you trying to be healthy. But like you said, then put MS back in the situation, it's not gonna play an effect in terms of like doing anything for that, but you are trying your best to be as healthy as you can aside from that. Does that make sense? So that's how I'd kind of look at it.
Yeah, mate, you're exactly right. That is literally how it is. Like, of course, drinking water, doing, even basic exercise, like all these things are things we as people with MS should be doing. And again, I want to do a podcast on this because it is what I do for work, and I really find it very interesting. And there is some things. There's a lot of good data on fasting, actually, which is interesting. So I'd like to sort of, the thing is, I want to look into it more before I start talking about it, because I want it all to be sort of backed up by everything.
I'd be really interested to like hear about like the fasting side of it as well, actually, because I've seen a few things around that. So I think we should definitely talk about that again.
Yeah, there's some quite promising data on it. I've got a video I can send you after we've finished. It's about an hour long, I think, but it's really, really good. And she's a legit doctor. She's not just making it up.
She's not from MLM, is she?
No, no, thank goodness. But yeah, I mean, my argument with when people say I'm healing my MS naturally or whatever, that was really mean. That sounded really sarcastic and horrible when I said that. But there is categorically no diet or nutrition plan that is going to help with your MS, like hands down. And again, my argument is that I was a trained athlete for 7+ years. I was healthy, very, very healthy. Yeah, I did still eat meat, but I was training twice a day. I was, peak of physical fitness. Like, on paper, that's why my diagnosis got missed, because they were like, there is absolutely nothing wrong with you. And yeah, say, imagine if I'd been diagnosed in my 20s. Say I'd been diagnosed at 20. And I'm me being, you know, I wasn't very poorly back then. I think even I back then would have been tempted to be like, well, actually, there's nothing really that wrong with me. Like, I
Yeah.
think I'm right. You know, I'm going to manage it with diet and exercise, which obviously I did, you know, did all my training, did all my competing. But all that aside, I still got really, really poorly and still had some real whopper relapses. And, you know, I wasn't protected by what I was eating. I wasn't, because at the end of the day, what happens, you know, with in our brains and spinal cords, it just happens. It's not, and they obviously, they don't even know why it happens. So you can't, anyone that tells you that they've got something for you in regards of like nutrition for curing MS or healing your MS, they are lying to you and taking advantage of you, basically. Me and Sam have been looking into multi-level marketing over the last week, and we've seen some quite horrific things.
Yeah, straight off the bat, like, because they're full well could be people listening to this with MS that are part of it. We do not support it, do we?
No.
And that's like your Arbonne's, Unique, Herbalife, Young Living. I mean, I feel like mainly the one that I see rear its ugly head the most is Arbonne.
Yeah,
in the UK. I know that, like, when I was like in my deep dive, America seemed to have a lot of issues with Beachbody.
Yeah.
I don't know whether I personally don't see a lot of that, but yeah, we do not support it at all.
There's just no, so to anyone listening, you're essentially paying £300 to be starved. I mean, there is nothing in the plan, which I went through last night, and not last night, 2 nights ago, and dissected. You're basically eating air. There's nothing behind it. And I've noticed, I think we've both noticed recently, that it seems like they are targeting people within the chronic illness community more. And I don't know how true that is, but I've had it myself. So I've had about 3 in the last, I don't know how long, probably a month or so. One of them specifically was talking to me about my MS. I mean, she slid up in the wrong girl's DMs, do not get me wrong, because she got put straight. But what I did find interesting was that she told me that she was already talking, as she referred to it as, I've made a new friend, which basically means you just found some random person on the internet and messaged her. And I think it was an older lady that had MS, and she was like, oh, you know, our 30-day plans really helped her MS and really alleviated her symptoms, and you know, she's raving about it, whether. And I was just literally like, so you've basically scammed this old lady out of money, you've sold her a false dream, and then you have the audacity to fucking accuse me. What was it? How did she word it? She was like, well, you know, I just thought that if there was anything that might help your illness, that you'd want to try it. And I just thought,
oh, thanks. Never thought of that before. I was just sitting here doing everything not to help it.
Yeah, like the absolute audacity, in saying that. Are you not aware that I spend hours and I'm researching and reading and talking to people and keeping on top of the most up-to-date multiple sclerosis research?
Yeah.
If I thought a fucking Arbonne fizz stick was going to fucking help, I would have already fucking ordered about 20 million boxes. But that's why I haven't. So, but I do think it's funny that these people that do message me, because, like I say, you take it somewhere else because you're arguing with the wrong girl, because I am clued up on this stuff, and you will not.
I kind of think that we should do like a whole episode on that, or at least like a big section of it, because I can dig out some messages that I've had from people that have referred to it, and there's just so much. That's probably one of the main things lately, isn't it, that we ring each other and we just like go off on one talking about these like power hours. Like, honestly, if you listen to us now, look on YouTube at the power hours, but don't look at the ones that are purposely out there on the internet, because there are a few where they have been posted to YouTube, and so they're very PC, you know, like they're aware that people are watching them. But there's some of these like power hours, these like Zoom meetings that have been leaked onto the internet, And they're the ones you want to watch, because they're the ones that will be telling you that, you know, if you're part of that team, you should go tell people with incurable diseases and tell people with cancer that they need your product.
Yeah, that I don't know
That's
if
the
any.
kind of people they are.
Yeah, I mean, Sam sent me a video the other day, and I put
Mm.
it on. I think I put it on my personal Instagram
I think you put
actually.
on both, didn't you? I think it was on both.
Yeah, it it was just shocking. It was literally like what Sam was just saying about the power hour thing, but it was like these two women telling all these other women to literally target people with
Yeah.
chronic illness and actually target people with cancer as well, which I just find absolutely like despicable. Like that is just
She was like,
no
oh, she
word.
has cancer. That's why she needs this. And this was Beachbody, wasn't it, that I said about? And
Yeah.
all they do is like workouts and shakes. And I'm not being funny. I can guarantee that over half of them are not qualified personal trainers. They've just
Mm-mm.
been handed a program from Beachbody and said, "Here you go, pass this on." And they're
Oh.
like, because she has cancer, she needs this. Well, she needs your workout from somebody that just used to probably, I was going to say something really rude then, but you know, like a non-professional.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's terrible. Yeah, and that's the thing as well. Like, they're not. It's like, what was it on the website? It was like, oh, the latest innovation in nutrition or something. I was like, none of you are qualified.
Mm.
Like, no, you don't know what you're
Yeah.
talking about. So this, what was it? This woman said, yeah, I do agree we should do an episode on this because I've got some excellent messages I could pull out. But this girl was basically trying to talk to me about. She was like, it'll change the pH level in your body. And I was like, well, that's really weird because our blood regulates at a level of 7.4, like consistently. So and it's very hard to manipulate. So I don't really understand what you mean by that. Like, can you explain? And obviously she couldn't. And it was just
Yeah,
like,
tell me about this.
yeah, just, we'll talk about this more in future. But I mean, like, just to anyone listening, like, just be aware that people will try and take advantage of you. And I
Yeah.
think it's like, I know when I was first diagnosed, I bought the Overcoming MS book
Me too.
because you want hope.
Never
Because
read it, but
yeah,
yeah.
same. Well,
Never bought it.
I've read bits of it, but I think especially when you're newly diagnosed, it's like you want answers and you need something to sort of cling to, and you need hope. But there
We
are
should do a whole episode on like I said, these like MLM companies and like specific diets, because there's a lot
yeah.
there.
Well, that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to
Mm.
actually be able to sort of dissect the diets, and I
Oh.
will just say now, the Overcoming MS diet,
Mm.
it's just not backed by any science. I
Mm.
mean, I think there's like one study that is like, it's a good, interesting study, but it was not a legit study, and it's like you can't base
The
what you're
only
taking.
thing that I will say on the OMS diet, on the diet side of it, yeah, like totally agree with you. Or like, taking what you say, there's no experience. But the only thing that I probably prefer, so I probably did pick up a little bit from the book, is that the OMS diet does, what's the word? Like, it does say you should take a DMD.
Oh yeah,
If you,
yeah.
I do like that. Like it also like, I think that I can't. There's like 7 points I think isn't there? But there's like diet, which yeah, and then there's like vitamin D, so like getting enough sun, and then there's meditation, and then there's alongside with ADMD. So that's
Yeah.
the only thing with that one. But that's not the diet. That's just
Well, yeah, and I mean these are all things that I would recommend to my clients that
yeah.
aren't sick. Do you know what I mean? Like, this is just your basic kind of nutritional like
Yeah.
advice. I mean, like you say, like meditation. Yeah, that's something I would definitely encourage my own clients to do. Vitamin D intake. Yeah, again, we don't have enough vitamin D generally as people. What are the other things? Like healthy fats, the
Yeah.
flaxseed oil thing. Well, yeah, having some decent healthy fat in your diet all these things are going to be good. But I remember, like, because I was all like, right, this is it, I'm cutting out all saturated fat and blah blah blah, and that I'm going to stick to this because I'm not going to get disabled or whatever. And then sort of as the sort of couple of months went by, I sort of was seeing these people on Instagram that were following the diet, and they were relapsing.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, well, you're definitely claiming that this is meant to happen if we stick to your diet, which I'm not being funny. I like eating saturated fat, and actually saturated fat isn't necessarily bad for you. It is in excess, but there's absolutely no reason why you shouldn't be eating it.
Like, isn't it the OMS sites? I'm sure, like, that it says, like, don't eat dairy. Is it?
Mm.
Yeah. And like you said to me in a voice note, like, because I definitely would like to talk about this, like, more in our episode, because I see a lot about the dairy is the devil.
It,
But like you said, like, you need calcium, right? Like,
yeah, I mean,
it's such a mixed message, because it's proven that calcium is good for you and you need calcium, but then people are like, cut dairy out completely. And I'm like, and then,
yeah, the thing
like
is,
you
you have
said, obviously, unless you have an intolerance, like, I feel like anything we say is, that's
oh yeah, I'm
coming from that.
completely really
Yeah,
severely allergic to dairy, but I would
exactly.
never ever tell anyone to cut it out because you just don't need to.
Yeah.
Like, it's, I always, like, you just have to ask people why. Like, if someone says cut out dairy, why? Go vegan, why? Like, can you actually tell me why you're doing these things, or are you just doing them because someone on the internet has told you it's a miracle cure and that it's going to help you? But, I mean, dairy is a great source of protein, and like you say, calcium. So, you know, unless you're
I
allergic
see
like me,
so many bad things about dairy. I'm excited
yeah.
to, I might pick out some of the stuff that I've like found that says like that it's so bad and send it to you, so then you can be like, no.
Yeah, please. I would love to do that. I'd love to do that. I was thinking actually, like the next episodes we do, I need to not plan them the night before, because I want to be able to like actually like cite studies and stuff, and I
Yeah.
haven't been able to do that because I was very MSy last night, and to people watching on YouTube, my notes literally look like a spider
You're
wrote
like,
them.
I'm gonna write them out properly, and then you're like, nah, this is as good as it gets.
Oh, no, I literally didn't have time. I like did that last night, fell asleep, woke up this morning, did yoga, sorted everything out, and then here we are. So yeah, but I
I
think,
watched that 365 days last night.
oh, I can't wait to hear about it.
Do not watch it. Don't watch it. Anyone listening, do not watch it. Anyway. Oh,
Oh,
I
no.
just wanted to quickly add as well before we moved away from like the whole MLM thing, like, because we're very vocal that we like don't support it, and that some of the people that do it are like the shittiest people preying on like people with a chronic illness. But I will also add, because it does appear that there are a lot of people that I follow and that follow me that have MS or have another chronic illness that are part of it. And it all depends. It depends like what they're preaching to people and what they're promising people. But my opinion on those people isn't an outright like hate for them. I think you're being scammed. And you can sing it to the hills as much as you like to me that you're not. And good luck to you, but you're being scammed. You
Yeah.
know, and I feel sorry for them, because they've been promised the world, and they've been told that the reason they feel okay at the moment is because they've been having an Arbonne fizz stick. No, you are being scammed.
Yeah, it is. And yeah, and I think
Intentionally or unintentionally, you know.
yeah,
Not everyone in that community is going to be like malicious enough to go out and do it. Some just is because they're so uneducated about it. But mark my words, in however long, a week, a year, you'll be like, damn, that random girl on the internet was right. I was being scammed.
yeah, I'd completely agree. And also, this is again another side note. You know, we were talking about fasting earlier. There is actually some quite promising data behind like calorie restriction and being in a calorie deficit, again for MS, which
Yeah.
again anecdotally makes sense, because the 2 times that I dieted for competition, I was the healthiest I've ever been. So that's something I really want to look into. But actually, these people that are doing this 30-day plan or whatever, you know, if they've gone from a really sort of pretty terrible diet and all of a sudden they've slashed their calories drastically, which is what happens when, you know, you go on a plan like that, because it is literally just like liquid and like the odd vegetable, you're going to be you're going to be in a severe calorie deficit, which then, you know, it could be just that alone that's making you feel better, not
Exactly.
the products. So
But it's not even the odd vegetable, because like that voice note you sent me the other day, and it was like, they were like, well, you've got this powder that has 10 vegetables in it, and this powder that has 10 fruits in it, and you're like, just fucking eat fruit and veg. Because it won't cost you 300 quid going to get a punnet of strawberries.
Yeah, it was like, here's our vegetable greens powder or whatever it is. But, you know, greens, I've said to you as well, like, you know, I supplement with a greens powder, but I also eat a fucking shitload of vegetables.
Yeah.
And then it was like, and here's our fibre booster. And it was like, maybe if you just ate the vegetables that have fibre, like, that would be more beneficial.
Expensive, aren't they? Anyway.
We'll get off this topic, but we will come back to it in a future episode. But yeah, again, I've just put on here, there's no diet. You know, there's, what's the other one, the Walls protocol. Also, yeah, well, that Terry Walls, I'm pretty sure that she actually had HSCT and just didn't tell anyone. I think there was a bit of a scandal about that. And then she sort of claimed that it was her diet, but it wasn't. But don't hold me to that, I don't know. And I know a lot of people like her diet. And don't get me wrong, like, if you're doing something that you feel genuinely helps you, please don't stop doing it. Like,
because everyone's different. Certain diets work for certain people, like you said, Kat. Like, you're allergic to dairy, so you don't eat dairy. Like, it's the same of everyone's bodies are different, MS or no MS, so foods that work for certain people won't work for others. So like you said, if the Walls protocol diet works for you, great, but it's that like brainwash mentality of being like, but it will fix your MS. It's like, okay, it might work really well for your body and you might feel really good on it, but don't let that build up a hope that means that you're never going to have a problem, because they're two separate things.
Yeah, and I think if it works for you, great, but don't be ramming it down everyone else's throat and telling them that's exactly what they should be doing. Because, again, you know, if you can show me science, if you can show me research and data that backs up what you're telling me, I'll be quite happy to look at it and I will, you know, listen. But if this is just something you've read on the internet or that Sally down the road's told you, like, I'm probably not going to buy into it. So, but yeah, I mean, we're on to the next page of my notes now. But yeah, basically those reasons, all of the reasons we've just said, are why we feel that DMDs are important with a diagnosis of multiple sclerosis. The disease can also be silent. It was once thought that the illness would only be doing damage during a relapse, but actually it's going on the whole time. So, you know, you could think that you're fine and, you know, not presenting with any symptoms or illness, but actually things are going on behind the scenes or like in your body, you know, and that is an issue. And that is another reason why, even if you feel absolutely fine, why it is a good idea to get on a high efficacy drug, in my opinion.
I find that really interesting because it doesn't surprise me in the slightest. And it's probably one of those things I was like, yeah, I did know that, like, makes sense. But I wouldn't have said that I outright was like, oh yeah, definitely. You know, like, I wouldn't have known that it was doing damage from symptoms, you know? Like, at the same time I said, like, yeah, I probably, if someone said it to me, I'd be like, oh yeah, I know, because it does make sense. And I'd be like, yeah, fine. But it wouldn't have ever been anything before that I'd have been like, oh, look, this is the case. So I find that really interesting, because I imagine there's probably a lot of people that will probably be like, oh, right, I didn't know that.
Yeah, no, I mean, that is true. That is not my opinion. That is facts. That's
I read that on, well, it was in that article as well, but I've seen that on some of like the MS Society's pages or the MS Trust, like you could have like even no symptoms, like you said, couldn't you? You could be like feeling great and it still could be in the background, like doing damage.
Yeah, for sure.
Which essentially, I guess, is what happened, like we said, in the lead up to them being diagnosed. All those years, things were happening in the background that led it to kind of get to breaking point.
Exactly. And the thing was, like, my disease progression was happening and I didn't even realize, like I said, I could have been like, I'm curing my MS with diet and nutrition, But 10 years later, and they open up my brain and have a look at it, and it's literally
Made up.
covered in lesions. And it's like, yeah, so it is, yeah, that is a fact. And also I was going to say as well, sort of like what we can do in the comments, and in future, if there's any papers or anything that we reference when we're talking, we can actually include those links or whatever in the YouTube comments, so people can do their own research kind of off the back of what we've been talking about.
Yeah, definitely.
But I mean, for me, again, another reason why people don't want to take DMDs is because of the side effects. Obviously I'm on Ocrevus. I've done a little post about it, so I'm not going to talk too much about it today. I'm going to let Sam talk about the drugs that she's had experiences with. But I mean, with Ocrevus, the side effects are very minimal. So for me, it was like a no-brainer. Like, but then again, even, you know, I wanted to go on, I was trying to look at the pronunciation of this last night. Tysabri. How do you say it?
I think it is Tysabri. That's how I've always heard it been said.
I say Tysabri as well.
Yeah.
And obviously there is the you know, the chance of if you're JC positive, you can have a brain infection or whatever. But even with that, I mean, I was super JC positive, which is why my neuro didn't really want to put me on it. But even if, so say mine was slightly lower, but I still was JC positive, I probably would have gone onto that drug because it was going to hit my MS the hardest. And for me, weighing up potential relapse or side effects, it was worth the risk for me.
Is Tysabri more like a hardcore than Ocrevus then?
I think they're similar. I
didn't know.
Tysabri works on T cells and Ocrevus works on B cells.
Tysabri's monthly though, isn't it?
Yeah, it
is. What is it? 6 months.
6 monthly, yeah. But I was reading about all the medications that target B cells and T cells last night. So again, I won't comment too much on it, but it is quite interesting. But yeah, my main point was, for me personally, the pros of a DMD would outweigh any, you know, even with all my hair falls out quite a lot with Ocrevus. That is one side effect I have really noticed. But
yeah,
I'd rather a bit, you know.
Like you said, it's weighing up the options, isn't it? And what's most important here.
Yeah.
So do you get any like other side effects? Like, I know everyone's different, aren't they? But like, have you experienced, apart from like you said that you will catch every like cough and sneeze knee because your immune system's lower, but like in terms of like, I guess, medication side effects, like do you get like sickness or anything like that?
Well, when did I have it? Where are we now? Sunday. I had it on Tuesday. I think today's the first day I've been feeling semi all right. I mean, I'm just tired. But kind of while I was having the infusion, it just felt like I've been hit by a truck. And the first time I had it, I did have like a runny nose. I started sneezing, my face swelled up, you know, kind of like sort of general allergic reactions, but then that went away. And again, I was just tired after it. This time was my first full dose. And it did knock it in the car on the way home. I was not feeling well at all. All of my MS symptoms started flaring up loads as well. So by the morning, my whole right side was like dead. Like, what else was there? My vision was bad.
Yeah.
But then I don't know it. But then equally, I don't know. It could have been just I was stressed as well. Like, and also, it's quite an invasive procedure. I think people just think you go into hospital and have a bit of liquid shoved in your arm for a while and then you pop home, and it's like, no, I'm literally having parts of my immune system destroyed. And then I've just felt pretty minging, to be honest, haven't I, the last week? Every day I'm just starting to feel gross. I just don't feel well. But I've been out for walks a couple of days. It's just the nausea that it makes me feel quite sick. There was one evening where I was literally like, oh my goodness, I just need to lie down because I just feel like I've experienced nausea, but I actually thought I was going to be sick, and I was like, I am never sick. But I mean, other than that, my hair falling out, I was trying to think. I don't think anything else really. If I think of anything, I'll
Yeah.
know.
But I mean, was that your first full dose?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
that's something that I like will always have ongoing conversations on, because things might change, the more you have it, the more things.
Yeah, like that's what I put in the post. I'm just going to sort of update it as it goes along, and just sort of like my experience with it, if it's working, if I
Yeah.
relapse, like, do you know what I mean? 'Cause like I did,
Interesting for everyone to kind of like take that journey with you,
yeah.
to see how it does go.
Well, I did obviously had that relapse, but
Yeah.
I think I said this in my post. Then when I had an appointment with, I think it was Ben Turner. Don't quote me on that. I feel bad if I've got his name wrong. One of the sort of decent neurologists in London, and I'm so sure he said that Ocrevus doesn't reach peak efficacy until 18 months
Oh
worth
yeah, I
of
remember you telling me.
doses.
Yeah.
So it's like, even though I've relapsed, like, to me, I don't feel like the drug has failed yet.
That's no, because it's still at the early stages, isn't it? So
Yeah. So we'll just have to see how it goes, really. But yeah, let's talk about your DMD journey, Mahan.
okay. So I was diagnosed in 2015. By the time I got the formal diagnosis, it was like September. These things take a while, like yada yada. I don't know for like treatments to kick in, but I started taking my first DMD in January 2016, I think it was. I think it could have been December, but roughly that sort of time. And I started on Tecfidera, which is a tablet, and you take that 2 times a day. Ideally, they say about 6 hours apart, and same as kind of like Ocrevus, the dosage. So like I think you have 2 weeks where you just take 120. What would it'd be like milligrams, not grams, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I wrote grams and then I was like, I don't think that seems right. Yes, it's like 120 milligrams each tablet for 2 weeks, and then you go up to the full dose, which is 240 milligrams. um and when I was diagnosed, like when I was having like the treatment discussions, basically from what I remember, you sit and talk to a neurologist and they kind of give you their opinion, or like what a few options of what they think would be good ideas. And there was like, I don't know if you had it was like this booklet, and it like folded out and it had all the list of them, and it kind of went up in order of like what was the most effective and what wasn't. Well, because this was like 5 years ago, my booklet stopped at Lemtrada. Like Tysabri and Ocrevus weren't an option then. Like I'm sure they were probably being tested and stuff, but they weren't like being put forward to people at that time. And I remember that I don't know, the injections were briefly mentioned, because they said to me like, we will offer you these, they're your choice, but we strongly recommended that they were too weak, sort of thing. So we kind of went to the Tecfidera and Lemtrada like end. Maybe Tysabri was on there, I can't really remember. And I remember at the time being really scared of Lemtrada, like the infusion, because not too much was sort of said to me about it, apart from all of the risks. Like back then it was very heavily pushed that yes, it is a good treatment, but it's very risky. And so like you said, it's easy to be like, well, I'd rather go down the safer route first, like, or what they're putting across to me as safer. So I chose Tecfidera at the time. And I just want to start off like with saying that I do know people that have been on Tecfidera for years, like nearly a decade, and it's worked so well for them. So any of my experiences, like, please don't take them as like that will or won't work for you, because everyone's different. But I did not get on with Tecfidera at all, like at all. I had the first side effect I got with it was sickness, which, to be fair, was fine. It was expected, like, because it was the first time in my life taking like bulk medication. And actually, a little bit of a side story, I did nearly try take Capoxone, the injection, because I was so bad at taking tablets. Like the pill, the contraceptive pill is like
Yeah.
tiny, right?
Yeah.
I would struggle to take that. I
Oh
would
my.
like, this is disgusting, I would chew paracetamol.
Can you not dry? I can literally dry take pills.
No, I would have to have like a massive glass of squash to take my contraceptive pill.
Oh,
And I would have
mate,
to chew paracetamol. Like,
that is the cutest thing I've ever
I
heard.
just I could not take tablets. So for me, I was like, well, it's gonna have to be this shitty injection because I can't swallow a tablet. But I was like, no, like I need to take Tecfidera. And luckily, I think because one, the capsules, like they are huge. Like don't get me wrong, they are big, but they're like, it's not plastic, but you know the ones that like they're not like powdery, so they do like swallow easier. And I think probably because I like knew I had no choice, I luckily never had a problem. And since then, so like that's made my tablet swallowing skills so much better. But yeah, so I started taking Tecfidera, and when my body was getting used to it, I did get sickness, but I didn't really get like nausea too much. Like there probably was days when I felt nauseous, but like it was just that I would be sick. Like literally out of nowhere, I'd be like, look, I'd just be sick. Like, and so it didn't bother me too much because I never really felt too unwell. And here's a little like gross story for you all. I remember being back at work in like my local branch, and I was sitting in the office and I had quite a few like deliveries coming for me because when I was off for like the little bit of time between, like when I come out of hospital, I like retail therapy hard and like ordered loads of online stuff. And because I was then going back at work, I ordered them to my workplace so I could open them. And I remember I'd opened up like I think it was like a Debenham small box that had perfume in it. And Frank, my partner, he works for the same company. Well, that's put a pin in that. Frank works for the same company as me, and so we were at the same place at that time. And I remember that all of a sudden I was like, I'm going to be sick, and because it just happens, I knew I didn't have like I had nothing that I could be sick into. So I just remember being sick into this like cardboard box that had like delivered my stuff. And I was like, and I put it down and I was like, nope, gonna be sick. And I just remember I was like picking up like different bits of like packaging and just look like, because it was like mainly water, you know, it wasn't like anything substantial. And then obviously because it was a box, I was like texting Frank like, oh my god, you need to come get this box because like it's gonna start leaking. And he just like ran in and grabbed this box and like ran out to the bin with it.
Oh, bless him.
So
Bless you, mate.
but yeah, like so really quickly, probably something to cover. Me and Frank have been together like 10 years next year. 5 years ago when I was diagnosed, I went into hospital on, I don't think I said this before, I went into hospital on July the 13th. And July the 13th was his first day of working where I worked, like, which is a bank. And I sometimes, I'm not sure because banks can be a bit funny about what you say about them. So I'm not going to name them or anything. That's why I say like my workplace. But yeah, so that was his first day working for the bank. So that's one of the reasons he didn't come with me, because he was like, oh my god, should I go? And I was like, no, like you can't on your first day, like up and leave. So anyway, that's the side story there, that we do work for the same company but in different divisions.
I didn't even know that, mate.
Yeah, but he hasn't always worked there. But yeah, it was his first, so we always remember that date because I'm like, oh, the day I went into hospital. He's like, oh, the day I started at the bank. Anyway, so yeah, so the sickness died down. My local GP gave me some like anti-sickness, and that really helped, you know, until the time. And then flushing, I don't know if you've heard of like that symptom. That is such a huge thing with Tecfidera.
Oh, I've seen pictures.
Yeah. Basically, you just go bright red, and it's like you're so itchy. It's like having like the worst sunburn or something. You just go so red and it's just so itchy, and that never stopped for me. Like it wasn't every single time, but like the sickness was kind of one of those side effects that because my body was getting used to it. But the flushing would happen every now and again all the time. And I swear, like, not that it's not like it's not the end of the world, but I do feel like my body is like semi-scarred from it. Because every now and again sometimes I get a feeling and I say to Frank, I'm like, oh, I feel like I'm flushing, which I'm not, because that's not a thing for like to what it was for Tecfidera. But yeah, basically you would just go bright red and be really itchy, which was the worst, especially like where I worked, because like I worked for a bunch of men and they'd be like, are you all right? Because I'd be bright red. And I'd be like, yeah, I'm fine. And they're like, but you're really red. And anyone that, like, I don't experience it, but like Frank does, like, you know, like some people go red if they're embarrassed or whatever. And when someone points it out, it makes it worse. Like, I would feel like that. I'd be like, yes, I feel like I got to a point where I would walk into the room and be like, by the way, guys, I can feel the flushing coming on, so no one comment. I am aware I am bright red. Let's just leave it.
I love it when people state things. It's like, I'm aware it's my own body. Like, I can look in a mirror.
Like, I told them time and time again, and still, are you all right? Are you all right? You're so red. Oh, you're so red. Oh my God, Sam, you're so. And you're like, cheers. I'm aware. I can see it. Like like my chest would be the worst. That would go really red. But anyway, so yeah, I didn't like Tecfidera, and
how long were you on it for?
so I was on it for, I want to say probably 18 months, I think roughly 18 months.
Then.
It was quite a while, but a year in, because these things take a while to like sort, like I said, I think it just over a year in, I relapsed really hard again. And so my neurologist, because like I'm really lucky, like I do have some good neurologists, they basically were like, this isn't the drug for you, because yeah, you've only had one relapse, but it's too soon, you know. For them, they were like, a year isn't long enough, like between relapses, like we would like to see longer, so we would like to change it because we don't feel that it's effective for you. One of the things, which this is this is going to anger you so much, I just know it is, when I was talking to my MS nurse around Tecfidera, because basically, like for me, like you talk to the neurologist about treatments and then you'd kind of like make that final decision and tell the MS nurse, like you'd go away and think about it. And she said to me, she was like, a thing to prevent flushing is to line your stomach well, which I guess makes sense with any medication. It's good, you know, some are meant to be taken on an empty stomach, but a lot they say like make sure you take with food or whatever. And they were like, so ideally fats will line your stomach to protect you from the side effects of Tecfidera. Now, I gained a lot of weight whilst I was on Tecfidera, because I swear to God, at one of them, she said to me, so just go have a Burger King and then eat it. Yeah, like it was promoted. Bad fats were promoted. They were like, don't feel bad about binging that chocolate bar. Like, dodge up, honestly. Like, I know things have probably changed. Like, this was a while ago, but I gained so much weight because it was like, not that flushing was anything, like it wasn't awful, but it's not pleasant. And the fear of not wanting to flush, like, and it was always like like my morning one wasn't ever too bad, but the one I would take in the evening, like I was eating too much or like the wrong food at tea time, because I was like, I really don't want to flush, I really don't want to feel sick. They told me that's okay to do this.
Did it help? Or did it not really make a difference?
Probably not. Like I said, I on and off flushed the whole time.
Yeah, so that's basically.
I think what helped was eating, like making sure I was full, comfortably full, you know.
Yeah.
And I think that's what helped. But equally, I could have eaten a healthy meal and it probably would have done the same thing. I do feel like that nurse that said to me, I should always remember, she was like, just eat a Burger King. Like, loads of people that take Tecfidera tell me that Burger King is the perfect thing to line their stomach. I mean, I didn't actually like Burger King, but like, you know,
I can't eat Burger King, and now we're talking about I really want to eat one, but I'm severely allergic to all of the
it makes me feel a bit sick. But anyway, so that was my experience with Tecfidera. Hair loss, weight gain, bright red. Just not fun. And I relapsed. So then I went back to the neurologist, and again, same sort of story. They spoke about like, these are your options, these are what we recommend, and it was narrowed down to Lemtrada again or Galenia. which is another tablet. And the same kind of thing was said, but less. It wasn't so much that they were like, oh, Lemtrada's so you know, like they didn't bash Lemtrada as much, but they were
Can
like,
I just say as a side note, for me, they did. Like, they literally were like they scared the shit out of me with that. I just wanted to say that, which looking back now, I think is shocking and
they
absolutely
did
terrible.
definitely like 5 years ago when for Tech Federa, but I feel like the guy that I ended up seeing was the one, I know I said to you that he was like, I care about Sam now and I care about Sam in 20 years. Like, he was lovely.
Yeah.
And he yeah, he didn't really bash Lemtrada, but didn't really talk about it too much. It was an option, and they said it does work. But he was like, but equally so does Galenia, and Galenia's less invasive because it's a tablet. So I was like, okay, I'll go for Galenia, you know, fine. And so Galenia was a tablet that was only taken once a day. And actually, show and tell, I've still got a box. So the Tech Federa that I took, as I said, was 240 milligrams per tablet. The Galenia is 0.5 milligrams. Like, and I don't know, I'm not that clued up enough, that's a massive thing, but to me I was like, that's amazing, like that it's less, I don't know, I just thought like, I just found that really interesting that it's such a lower dosage but essentially like does the same thing, if not like, because Galenia wasn't available when I first was shown them, you know.
That's mad, you know. The
It's honestly,
advances
things are changing
in
so much.
drugs.
So yeah, when I first had the conversation, the only tablet that I can remember definitely was Tech Federa, and then the infusion was Lemtrada.
Yeah.
And then Galenia then was like a newly approved one as well at the time. So I chose Galenia, and I really have like nothing to say on the matter because I didn't have a single issue with it in terms of side effects. Like, it's so tiny.
That's so good.
I don't know if I should still have these, but like that's what it looks like. It's so small. I just didn't know what to do with it.
Well, you're not allowed to throw them
Exactly. So
So
like,
yeah.
what am I going to do with them? So I just kept them. So yeah. So that's my show and tell. Here's my Galenia. But yeah, I had no problems with Galenia. Like, it went from taking Tech Federa that was very apparent, I was taking like heavy medication with hair loss and everything, to barely noticing that I was taking Galenia. Like, you know, I had no side effects. But whether that's because I did take such a heavy milligram like dosage before, I don't know. But I just had like side effect wise no issues, and I didn't relapse on it either, which is good. But like we've said earlier, my symptoms got, or like, yeah, it is symptom. Yeah, symptoms is the right word. Like, my symptoms of my MS were getting worse whilst on it. Like, the sensations were like there, the numbness, the fatigue. Like, I just felt like the probably about a year, if that. So I think that December, I don't know. I can't remember when it was, but it was a December time that because with Galenia, when you take the first tablet, you have to go into hospital because apparently the first tablet, or like firstly taking it, can make your heart rate plummet.
Okay.
And so they like wire you up and stuff and just make sure that it doesn't. So I had to go to Addenbrooke's and take the first dosage. And I remember that was like December time. Because there was a girl in there as well having MS. Having MS. There was a girl in there having Lemtrada, and interestingly, like, she said that was her first choice of treatment, and she was like, I'd rather go hard or go home.
That was me, mate. When I got diagnosed, I was offered all these ones and I was like, I want Lemtrada. But the only reason I didn't have it was because I needed to have my spinal surgeries first.
Yeah. And then wasn't it like a, you don't qualify anymore?
And then they took it off the table. And I remember being really upset that was, and Ocrevus wasn't even available. So this is what I mean by how things are changing so rapidly. Like, with MS, sort of anything MS related, it's
it's changing a lot.
mad.
So I went and had, the first dosage of Galenia, and it didn't bother me at all. But the year, if that, probably a year that I was on Galenia, I just felt so unwell. Not relapse unwell, but
Mm.
just, I was like, is this as good as it's ever gonna get? Like I had a bad year, like, which I know me and you have like spoken before. I've said about like my mental like everything that's gone on, and that's another episode, definitely. I'm not going to get into that now, but like I just had a bad time on Galenia, but not necessarily because of the tablet. I just felt like it just didn't, because essentially these, like we've said, these DMDs, they're not made to fix the symptoms, they're made to prevent relapses. And if you look at it from that point of view, it was successful. I didn't have a relapse on it, but I just didn't have a good time on it. So that led me to, then I was like, right, 2 failed DMDs down, what have I got to lose? Like, I want to take Lemtrada. And for me also, it was kind of a mental health decision as well, because, and this is just personally, like everyone's different, but I felt like we have enough constant reminders daily that you have MS, and I felt like taking a tablet every day didn't help.
Yeah.
I just felt so controlled by making sure that I definitely would be able to eat at a certain time, or going out, that I had enough with me, going on holiday, that I'd remember. Like, it just felt like a tie to the fact that I had MS.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
just, after that amount of time and feeling and having such a bad year, I just felt so done with it. So I was like, I'm ready for Lemtrada. Now, I would say luckily, but I think because I'd failed to, I would have qualified anyway. But I decided to take it just before that changed, like just before. So when I moved over to Lemtrada, there wasn't like a you have to qualify for it. It was just that I could, and that was essentially my reasoning for going over to it. But I know that shortly after, they said, didn't they, that actually you have to have failed 2 DMDs, or
Yeah.
maybe like have a certain.
I was fuming, to be honest, because like
Yeah,
I'd
yeah,
already
'cause
made
we
this
were.
decision.
Yeah, that was one of the first few things that we were talking about, weren't we? You were like, "Oh, I think I want to pick Lamtrada."
Yeah, but you were like,
Yeah, well, no, because at the time you could, at the time, couldn't you?
yeah,
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 I was like, "Yeah, do." And then I remember you telling me like, "Oh, can't now, can't have it anymore."
yeah. I was so annoyed. Like I say, I was like, because my back injury had just like ruined so many things for me. And then it was like, but I can't even get the fucking MS treatment I want now. Like,
Yeah.
but I mean, it did all work out. But yeah,
Mm,
it was my first choice.
yeah. So with Lamtrada, um, this is my non-scientific explanation of my understanding of it. It like kills off part of most of your immune system, and research, like, not, what's the word, not experiments, like trials, that's the word. Experiments sounds really,
Yeah. Well, I
trials
suppose it is an
have
experiment.
shown that when it regrows with the chance of lesser attacks, like
Yeah.
relapses. That's my understanding. And you have to have, it's compulsory to have 2 rounds. So, and they're done yearly. So I had my first round last year. I went into hospital on the 25th of March, I think it was, for 5 days. And the first 3, you also have steroids for an infusion. And then the last 2 days, you don't. But so, like, the first 3 are 2 hours, I think it is. 2 hours of steroids in the morning, followed by 4 hours of Lemtrada through the IV, followed by 1 hour of flushing, like just like a fluid they
What,
put
for an
through.
hour?
An hour, yeah.
Actually, I'm trying to think how long mine is. I think it's probably about the same, or
Mm.
maybe not. I just wondered.
Yeah, they do an hour of flushing to make sure that it like all, well, that's what they said to me, to make sure that it all goes in, because apparently they never used to do the flushing, and it was like only ever so slightly, but slightly less effective because it wasn't like getting to where it needed to be,
Oh,
I
okay.
guess. So yeah, so that's the first 3 days, and then the last 2 days you can just go straight into the 4 hours of Lemtrada and then an hour of flushing. my experience with it. So I think it's important to note that I relapsed between coming off Galenia and starting Lemtrada. And so I felt so fucking ill going into it. So like
Oh,
some
I
people have gone
remember
into
how
it.
poorly you were.
I was so poorly. So some people go into it feeling like relatively okay. So they probably have a completely different experience. But for me, that was the first time ever that I've had eyesight problems. That relapse, you know, hit really hard. So I didn't have the best time with it. And I remember the Monday, the first day was definitely the worst. And they did say to me that apparently, like, the first day always is for people because it's the first day that it blitzes it, your lymphocyte count to 0. And so it is like poison in your body, isn't it? You know? And I completely lost my eyesight, like in both eyes. That was probably the scariest thing.
Oh my God.
Like
How long did that last?
just whilst the infusion was happening. So like by the time the probably after the like by the time the flush through had finished, I could see again, but it was like just hazy, like the eyesight problem I was having. But about half an hour to an hour into having Lemtrada, it was just pure blackness. Like no mugginess, no nothing. It was just pure blackness. And the idea is really scary, and it was, but at the same time, because I felt so ill and because other stuff was going on as well, it was just one of those things that you just survive. Do you know what I mean? Like I wasn't freaking out because all I could manage to do was lay there. Like at one point I remember being so hot. I was like on fire and I was like, I need a fan on, like I'm boiling, like I'm so hot. And then like it just snapped and changed and I was like, turn the fan off, I need every blanket. And I could not stop vigorously shaking because I was so cold. So because all that was going on as well, all I could manage to do was just lay there and just like on the chair sort of thing like that they give you and just like get through it, you know. And then so like then the rest of the days in comparison to that, like they weren't pleasant, but they weren't as bad. um on the Thursday, the first day of not having the steroids, I felt really good. Like I sat up cross-legged in the chair sideways because I was quite fortunate that no one else was having it done at the time. I say fortunate, like don't get me wrong, it's nice to talk to people. I think maybe someone came in one day for something, maybe Ocrevus. No, would that have been? I don't know, for something. But so Frank, like you're allowed. I know you said when you have Ocrevus, you're not allowed anyone with you, are you?
No. Oh, sorry.
Hi, Murphy. If anyone's not watching, you
The
should
dog's
check out the
fine.
YouTube because now you get to see a cute dog.
No, he's hiding behind the microphone. He's
That's
looking. I
great.
think he needs to go to the toilet. Sorry, what you were saying? You just.
Yeah. But yeah, with Ocrevus, you said, didn't you? You can't take anyone into the infusion.
Yeah, no, you're not allowed anybody
No,
in.
you are with Lemtrada. Like you
Oh,
are allowed
really?
one person with you the
Yeah.
whole time. I think because like it can like blitz you that you just
Yeah.
need help or whatever. Um, so yeah, so the Thursday, I remember sitting up cross-legged to the side, talking to Frank, and like we just talked non-stop all the time we were there, like doing just like random stuff, like we were like looking on Google at like quizzes and just like quizzing each other, playing like would you rather, like just random stuff. And I felt so good, like
Yeah.
you know, the fact I even could manage to cross my legs, I felt good. And I was like, this is great. I'm going to go home and I'm going to feel fantastic. And it just lured me into a false sense because then Friday was really shit again.
The steroids, I think. The steroids, to be fair, I felt like that when I got back from Ocrevus and it was only a small dose of steroids. And I was like, I've got loads of energy. Mum was like,
Yeah.
go to bed. And I was like, I'm fine. Like,
I've
I'll
said to you
walk.
before, haven't I, that like steroids have never affected me that way before. I've always been really
Yeah.
tired. So that was new to me and that was great. But yeah, it didn't last. But I did leave hospital significantly better, like still pretty ill, but better than I went in. But I would put that down to the steroids
Yeah.
that I had. Um, so yeah, that was round 1 of 5 days, and then round 2 was meant to be on the 6th of April this year, which you go in for 3 days. So it's shorter, but with everything that's been happening in the world, that was postponed. Um, and I still don't know when it'll be.
In my opinion, completely unacceptable. All
Yeah.
the MS patients having their treatments put on hold. Again, probably something for another podcast, but yeah.
They're saying, so this like board of neurologists association, whoever these people are, they say that it's deemed too high risk at the moment, which, so my views on that have changed, because originally when I was told it, I was like, fine, okay, like everything, because it's 6th of April, like that was kind of near the start of all this kicking off.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't really know what was going on. So when they first said it, bearing in mind that the week before, they said to me, oh, there's a strong chance that it won't be going ahead or whatever. And so I just assumed it wasn't when I didn't hear from them. So I didn't go, because they didn't actually tell me till the Tuesday when I was meant to have been there the day before.
Oh, wow.
But they were busy, because I think that there was people like in the
Yeah.
couple of weeks before me that would do it as well. So because it was also like new, and they were like saying it's too risky, I was like, I respect that, and I was like, yeah, what you're the professionals, like if you're telling me that it is too high risk to do that, fine, totally accept that. And I did for a long time, but now, especially like the last few months, I'm just gonna be really abrupt about it, I just think, how the fuck can people go shopping in Primark and I can't have a treatment that I need?
Yeah,
Like,
mate. Yeah, I'm completely with you on
I
this. And,
just
and to
don't
be honest,
know.
I've been this way the whole time. Everyone kept saying to me, "But it's for your own good. It's for the best." And I'm like, what part of like irreversible brain damage do you not seem to understand? Like once if we relapse, it's it could that's permanent damage. So
Now, like we're heading into like July soon. I feel like I keep thinking, well, if they had have let me have it on April the 6th, that's like April, May, June. Like we'd be heading into the 4th month now since I had it. And I've had to shield this whole time.
yeah,
So why could I have not just had that and shielded?
that was
Whereas
my argument
now
as well.
I'm still waiting to have it, and I've still got a whole load of shielding ahead of me from when I have it.
Yeah.
And also to note, because the whole point of Lemtrada is that it has to be had 12 months in between, but apparently research shows that it can be extended to 18 months. So there's not too much difference in like how the drug behaves and affects with like a 12-month gap to an 18-month gap. So that takes us to September. So I'm running out of time for it to even work, you know. And I have like, I don't want to, I feel like I've gone on quite a lot. I don't want to go too much into it, but like you said, like you have had a relapse on Ocrevus, but you could have had more. Well, like I had a relapse earlier this year as well. It was like a really bad one. So again, I'm like, it's, I guess there's the argument of who's to say it couldn't have been more than that. But with Lemtrada, what they do is like they take an MRI before and then they take an MRI a year after your treatment to compare it. But because I've had 2 relapses since that MRI, so I'm like, how are they going to know if it's worked? Because there's gonna be new damage on there. Has
Yeah.
this happened? I don't really
Yeah.
know.
You've just reminded me, I'm waiting for results of my MRI. I still haven't had those yet, have I? When
No,
did I even
I'm
have
just I'm
that?
just turning my fan off. I'm getting a bit cold.
I'll allow that. I've got a dog asleep on my lap.
I always start these podcasts and I'm like, it's so hot in here, it's a furnace. And then I turn my fan on, and by the end I'm like, oh my god, I'm freezing. But anyway, so yeah, I don't really know. The other thing I guess to note, like like if people are interested, if they are like qualifying to take it, is you have to have a blood test monthly as well for 5 years. And that's just to make sure that none of the side effects, like if they do kick in, they'll deal with them straight away. But that's not really an issue because my GPs do them. So I think you're allowed to like say to your GPs, can you do it and send them off? So that's not an issue. And because everything that's going on, my GPs won't see me because it's a non-essential blood test to them, because it's not them because they're not the ones requesting it. So they're washing their hands of it at the moment. So like my MS nurses have said that they'll do it every 3 months, and they have actually, like, someone comes to me. So fine. I've had someone come to me in May and take my bloods. But yeah, so that's kind of where I'm at the moment. I haven't completed it either, so I feel like I'm kind of at the same stage as you in that it's early days with this treatment, because like I said, it's compulsory to have 2 rounds, but some people do go on and have like a 3rd or 4th round, like if needed, or like a top up. I've seen people say they call it. So we'll see. Hopefully, I'll get given my damn treatment.
I know, that's what I was going to say. Hopefully you'll get it as soon as possible. I mean, I can relate, because I was mine was, to be fair, mine actually wasn't delayed by that long. I think it was about a month and a half or something like that. But I don't know, it's just not nice to have hanging over you. And I think, like you say, you're going to have to shield anyway. So
yeah, and it's just not nice, the idea of like things starting to go back to normal for people, and I've still got this to come. Like you said, it's just hanging over you, that I'm like, everyone's like, well, soon things will be back to a new normal or whatever. And I'm like, oh yeah, they will. And I'm like, oh, for God's sake. Like, I try not to think about it too much, to be honest, because on just like the surface of it, it doesn't bother me too much. I'm just like, okay, like I'll wait and see what happens. But when I really think about it, I think the longer that you wait again, the more like my anxiety gets about it, because it was so unpleasant last time that I'm like, it's almost like I've forgot, like, because a year, like no other treatment that I've had before, like the tablets, it was daily. I've gone a year without having to put a DMD in my body. I feel like I've kind of been like, I've forgotten, you know? And so I get a bit like, oh, I've got to have that again, you know?
Well, also, I did find it very ironic that they pulled everyone's MS treatments, and actually stress is one of the things that they say affects people's MS the most. I mean, I don't know about you, but the stress I felt of knowing that it was like, I didn't know when I was going to get it, that made me ill, because I was so worried that I was going to relapse again. But
I haven't, like they say, don't they, that stress is one of the massive factors that can trigger relapses.
Yeah.
I mean, so I was going to say, I have in like the back of my head, only because I saw someone's post on like the Facebook group Lemtrada, and I don't think they will, because I think like the whole point is that Lemtrada has to be 2 rounds. So unless they refuse to give it to me and we run out of time, fine. But I saw someone basically said that their neuro was like, let's just write off Lemtrada and let's move on to Ocrevus.
What?
Yeah, and so a lot of people are commenting saying, but you've only had 1 round. You've just done all that for no reason. Because the annoying thing is, just caught my microphone. The annoying thing is that even if they now said to me, or if I run out of time, or they said to me like, let's move on, I still have to have the 5-year blood tests, because all the risks are still there because I've had round 1, but with none of the benefit.
Yeah, that's not on.
But I'm not but hey, I'm not dissing Lemtrada, because it's a very highly effective drug, isn't it? And I'm hopeful, you know, that it will work. But I'm in the middle of it, so can't really comment just yet.
Yeah, I just hope you get it ASAP, mate.
The last time I spoke to my MS nurse was the 1st of June, because that was when some of these lockdown measures started like easing, didn't they? And I was like, is there any news, like, you know? And she said something, that's when she said to me, like, the board of neurologists,
I don't like this board. I want to burst in. I just picture like a boardroom and like me bursting in and being like, excuse me, I've had enough of this. Like, this is mad.
Like, oh, it's deemed too high risk still. But then she put at the end, but you are on the priority list and you won't be forgotten about. And I kind of took that as like, shut up and go away. Like, we will contact. Not in the harsh way, but I kind of took it as like, stop asking, Sam. We do remember about you. So
that is good though.
At least till I'd say, do you know what? Like, I always forget about August. I keep thinking, oh, it's only July and September.
No, man,
yeah. I'm quite hopeful now that I probably will hear from them soon-ish.
Yeah, I reckon, because I mean, I was told that I had to shield for another 3 months, and obviously I've been in the house on my own, well, with the dog. But actually, someone put it on the group, like, because I'm obviously in an Ocrevus group on Facebook, and there was loads of people that were like, no, I haven't been told that. Like, I'm just getting on with my life as normal. And I'm like, well, how come my hospital's told me that I have to shield? And But I do think life, in air quotes, is sort of starting to start back up again. So I'm really hoping that
and
for
you do
you.
get given, like with Lemtrada, I was sent away with like, I'd rattle when I walk. I was sent away with a lot of medication. So like you do get like a lot of antivirals and stuff, which is good because to prevent like getting any real serious like what's the one that you can get from like eating like not like unwashed like vegetables and
I
stuff?
know, I know what you're talking about. Oh, what is it? Because
It's
they
like
don't you have to eat a special diet?
no, but they say that like it's handy to follow the same regime as what a pregnant woman would, because I think they have to avoid like pasteurized cheese. What is it? What is it?
Oh, I know exactly what it is you're
Yeah,
talking
it's that
about.
one where you can get it from like unwashed veg and like soft cheeses and
They tell you not to buy like salad, like pre-made
pre-packed
salad.
salad and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I can't remember. But you get given an antiviral for it. So like you could you could be like, well, I'm gonna do it anyway and try hope that antiviral works. But ideally, yeah, just don't do it. I can't. Oh, it's gonna really bug me. I'll have a look and I'll put it in the description
No.
bar
Oh,
because it's gonna really
oh my
bug me.
God.
But yeah, you get given like antivirals and stuff like that for like 3 months or something. It's a really long time after it. Um, what is it bloody called?
I know it's going to drive me mad.
Yeah,
But actually saying that is next on my list of things, is that about how DMDs aren't symptom control. It's only because you were just saying about other medication. We'd obviously said that we were going to do another
yeah,
podcast on symptom control medication. But taking a DMD for MS, you know, I've got loads of symptoms and it doesn't do anything for them. That's not the role of a DMD in multiple sclerosis. And a lot of people have said to me, obviously, you know, because I had my treatment last week or whatever, and you know, people ask how I am and I'll say that I feel like crap. And they'll be like, oh, you know, but you should be feeling better soon because you've had your treatment. And I'm like, no, no, it doesn't. It literally doesn't do anything. Like it's like it's like I've not had it, essentially, in that I'm exactly the same. All
yeah.
my
Because it's
symptoms
not.
are the
Yeah,
same.
that's not its purpose, is it?
Yeah.
But
So I,
yeah, we definitely should do one on like other treatments because I
yeah.
got a whole host of that as well.
I've got a few.
Yeah,
Um, but yeah, I mean, I think that's just quite a common like misconception with MS treatment, is that it actually sort of helps with our symptoms, but it doesn't.
yeah,
And I think some people do sort of, you know, they'll say anecdotally it has helped my fatigue or whatever, but you know, there's no real data to back that up. I mean, I said that I felt a bit less fatiguey, but then again, that could have just been a coincidence, you know, that I go through stages as we all do. So
yeah. That might be completely unrelated.
yeah, the role of a DMD is purely to slow down the progression of the
Yeah.
disease, not to sadly not to help with any kind of symptoms or pain or anything like that. Like we have a whole host of
Yeah.
other things that we're allowed to take for those.
Maybe we should do a poll on Instagram or something, or again, like people on YouTube can comment on whether they'd want us to do like other symptom treatments next as a podcast. So like fatigue, pain, bladder, stuff like that, like treatments for those, or whether they'd want like the nutrition one a bit more in depth. You know, like
Yeah,
about like different diets and stuff like that. And see. Because we
either
will do
or.
both, but yeah, maybe it would be interesting to see like what people really want to hear next.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's what, again, that's actually, that's brought us to the end of the podcast, actually, mate,
Cool.
on my notes. And yeah, I've just put here, like, any questions, obviously, on
Yeah.
anything we've discussed, you can either DM either of us privately, obviously the WhatMS page. And also we welcome any kind of discussion in the comments
Yeah.
and comments on social media. Because we want this to be sort of like an interactive thing, and you
Yeah,
know,
definitely like to hear back from people like on their
yeah.
experiences and stuff. With the is there an email address linked to that? Because there's an email address linked to the podcast as such, because I had to, or for the
Oh, you had to
YouTube, isn't
make one,
there? I
didn't
had to
you?
make one, yeah. So I can put that into the description bar as well. Like if people wanted to write more of a lengthy something to us, they could always email it over.
Yeah, stick that in, mate. I can't
Yeah.
remember the one I use.
But again, I'll put like the Instagram, I'll put all of the contact details so that people can read them. And if you're watching on YouTube, obviously you can comment.
Yeah, but any discussion, any comment, or anything that you want to put
Hello.
either of us up on, please do feel free.
Yeah.
We will not be offended. And if you can hear my dog breathing heavily down into the microphone right now, I do apologise, because he's you can see his head.
Oh, I can't hear him.
He's just asleep in my arms. So yeah.
This is completely unrelated, but a nice way to finish the podcast. Honestly, the photos that you post in the morning of Murphy laying in your arm. I have a nearly 2-year-old Labrador, and he just would not lay still like that. He'd be like ripping at everything, and I look at him, I'm like, oh my god, he was so cute.
The thing is, like, it's because he's a rescue dog, and I babied him. Like, from the day I got him, he slept in the bed with me, and here we are 14 years later, and he just lets me cradle him like a baby.
Honestly, hey, people need to follow your like other account, even if you're just for the Murphy pictures.
Yeah, he does have quite a little cult following, actually.
He's
People
so
do
cute.
enjoy. But
anyway, before we digress again, I guess.
Yeah.
Was there anything else that you wanted to add, or?
No, I think that's about it, really. Just thanks for listening. We had some really positive feedback, actually, from last week's episode. So
yeah, keep sending the feedback. Like, yes, it's nice to know that we're on the right track, I guess, and that we're not just waffling and people are like not interested.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, we appreciate any input and feedback. So yeah, thanks guys for that.
All right, then I'll speak to you all next week.
Yeah, thanks.
Bye.
Thanks everyone. Bye.